Dave, I've got an idea.
Another one. No.
Another one. No. Do you remember that 80s series we did for These Football Times?
I do. Yeah.
And that you enjoyed so much. The editor, when I said, like, Dave, we've got this podcast, and it'll be like 10 episodes, and it's the perfect, sequel to the 70s, and there'll be an hour an episode. Yeah. Well, this is similar, except like, it's our baby. This is like the Knots Landing to kind of like the Dallas that is These Football Times, basically.
I'm not sure that's very encouraging.
I'll tip up in a 10-gallon hat. We'll grab a few others like a Sue Ellen, and a Bobby Ewing, that type of thing involved. Are you on board for it? Just when you felt it was safe to get back in the water.
So this is the one where we're going to do 45-minute episodes that go to 3 hours. Yeah,
45 minutes per episode, possibly an hour. At most. Yeah, and then people will love it. They'll really love it. They'll properly buy into it. Have you any ideas of kind of like what could we call it?
Well, given how long I'm going to end up being editing everything, what about
the longest day?
Hell of a beating.
I like it. Not the longest day. We'll go. One hell of a beating. I like that. Do you think you could cobble together kind of like some kind of intro for it?
Well, I suppose we could probably work something out.
And still Ricky Villiers. What a fantastic run! He scored! Amazing goal! And Dalglish is in here. Yes!
Straight out to Socrates. Socrates still trying to get the opening. Oh, Socrates! Whoa!
And there it is. The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club.
Maggie Thatcher, can you hear me? Maggie Thatcher, your boys took a hell of a beating. Your boys took a hell of a beating.
Any idea who we should get involved in this?
Well, we'll need somebody to sing, so obviously they'll have to have Aidan.
Aidan Williams, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll jot this down, Aidan Williams.
You've got to get Stu in, because Stu is definitely the enthusiastic one.
He seemed to enjoy it in a low level kind of way. We've just got to be wary of the Gary Bailey factor in that. I don't know, what do you reckon, in a kind of Ocean's 11 kind of style, but more of a Scraggs 5, I think. We need one more. We need a grease man. Who can be our grease man?
We can get Chris in as well. I think he'd probably
Chris Gladkowski. Yeah, okay.
I think he's still wearing his clothes from the 80s.
Yeah, definitely. There's the odd phone call saying that Tom O'Connor wants his shirt back, and all that type of stuff. Excellent. This has potential, Dave. This has potential. So we're settled on it. It's going to be called. What's it going to be called again, Dave?
Your boys took a hell of a beating. What a hell of a beating!
Your boys took one hell of a beating. Yeah, we'll channel Oslo 1981 in the title. Do we know who Lord Beaverbrook was?
Of course, he was to do with the Daily Express, so that's a black mark against him for a starter.
So there's going to be some kind of Nazi kind of edge to that then, isn't there? But that's all right, because he was goading Lord Beaverbrook and
True,
Thatcher.
that's true.
So we can live with this. So you've got the technicals, because obviously we can't do that, Dave. So you're going to be our technical guru, but you're also going to be able to kind of you got to be on for podcasts as well.
Okay, I'll do a few.
Okay, so you can be the grown up in the room.
Yeah, excellent. I can point out that the 70s was better. And...
See, we need a voice. This is it. We need a voice of reason to kind of like rein us in a little bit. Obviously, Stu, Aidan, and Chris still need to know about this, and I'll send out job interviews to them as well. But I think this has got massive potential. So this is going to be our very own Knots Landing kind of effect. Our own little cul-de-sac of a podcast.
We'll give it a go.
Any idea for the first episode that we could do?
Well, first of all, we've got to make sure that everybody knows what they're talking about. We've got to put them through a test. A
rigorous test, I think. A rigorous interview and test. And definitely. Okay, we're on, Dave. Okay. This is going to happen. Yeah, your boys took one hell of a beating.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, candidate number 1, please give us your name and state exactly what your 1980s football credentials are. What can you bring to this podcast of ours?
Gosh, well, my name is Chris Lepkowski. I think that's the easy bit of this. I'll tell you a bit about my 1980s. I was fully invested in Match and Shoot magazine. My favourite music is probably from the early 80s. If I tell you that Brian Robson was my football hero, Ayrton Senna was my F1 hero, and I'm writing a book currently about the 1980s, specifically one particular year in that decade. I'm hoping, Your Honour, that thereby ends my defence and allows me some leeway in this particular charge.
It's definitely a foot in the door, Chris. It's definitely a foot in the door.
You're a harsh man.
Second point of call. Your general thoughts on the programme Blue Peter?
Oh, blimey. I hated it, actually. I quite like Peter Duncan because he had a bit of a devil about him. He had a twinkle in his eye. And, you couldn't not like Janet Ellis or Sarah Green or Karen Keating. But Simon Groom, it was like getting home from school and then tuning in to watch your geography teacher, No offence to Simon if he's listening, and I hope he is, but dear, oh dear, I never took to Blue Peter. It was a bit too craft-centric for me. And I was rubbish at art and crafts at school. I enjoyed writing, I enjoyed sport, but I wasn't into craft. I wasn't into building lanterns for Advent. And I wasn't particularly into watching people wrestling with animals or climbing up chimney towers to clean them and things like that, which is what Blue Peter seemed to specialise in. I was quite amused when the Blue Peter garden got vandalised. I thought that was that was somebody doing it on behalf of all children and young people in the country who just wanted to get home and watch something fun and not have that feeling of dread about going back to school at 5:05 for another edition of Blue Peter every Monday and every Thursday. For me, everything about that period was Grange Hill, Murphy's Mob, Joss's Giants, Biker Grove. I think you can see the theme here. I certainly... I wasn't into Blue Peter. It was too twee. It was a little bit like the Daily Mail of kids' programmes. Not for me at all.
This is good, Chris. This is good.
Am I in the door yet? Am I through?
You've got 2 feet in the door here. Blue Peter was very much fodder for the burgeoning middle classes, and I'd class it almost being propaganda for the Thatcher youth. It was very much a second. It was another school lesson of the day. It was definitely not what we are looking for in this podcast.
Like I say, Peter Duncan was a little bit like the supply teacher who'd been parachuted in, and you knew you could have a bit of fun with him. But the rest of them, and of course the female presenters were great because they were they were quite cool. But Simon Groom and some of the other male presenters were just so dry. Mark Curry. Oh God, that takes me back. He was like somebody who should have been on Radio 1 but wasn't quite good enough and got put away in the graveyard slot and then ended up on Blue Peter. No, not for me at all. Like you say, it was a very Thatcherite production in my world in West Bromwich back then.
Absolutely. Janet Ellis aside for me. Broke a leg, I believe. I seem to remember breaking a leg jumping out of an airplane, and an unmarried mother. That she was totally non Blue Peter as far as the most un-Blue Peter presenter going. But
she was. And you know what? I did actually once in another lifetime as a silver service waiter while I was at university, and I used to go back to Birmingham and work at the Botanical Gardens, and I did once drop a cake and icing all over Mike Smith. And Sarah Green thought it was hilarious. Mike Smith thought it was appalling and really wasn't happy. He was wearing a dinner jacket at the time, but Sarah Green thought it was hilarious. And from that moment on, I've always loved Sarah Green. God rest his soul, Mike Smith, but Sarah Green, she got it. She got it. That's all I'll say.
Excellent stuff. For your next question, what we've got here is a name the 1980s TV quiz show from the synopsis given.
Okay.
Now this programme began broadcast on BBC One, 12th of October 1987, and stretched as late as July 1996. It was usually on after the lunchtime broadcast of Neighbours, presented by an Irish broadcaster that I will... Going for gold. That is excellent work. Chris, you are on an absolute flyer here.
Did anyone ever win that trip to Seoul for the Olympics? It was probably Hans from the Netherlands. They used to show the contestants at the start, and Hans from Netherlands had a little dolphin that he would go like this. For those listening at home, I'm sort of doing this dolphin formation thing, but all of the contestants were from abroad, apart from the token Englishman or Englishwoman who would be terrible.
Yeah, who tended to be really, really thick as well. Yeah.
Brilliant. Compulsive viewing for those of us wagging school or off ill.
Excellent. This is an excellent start to your interview, Chris. I'm much approving here. Moving on to our next one. Earlier today, you were given a random 1980s top 40 listing. Now, your top 40 listing came from the week that Liverpool clinched the league title in 1985-86. That may or may not be the season that you were writing a book about. And I was asking you for the one song that you would happily illegally tape from the top 40 from that week.
Okay, there's a few choices here. Well, at number 40, to mark Her Majesty's 65th birthday, I believe it was, something like that, the Queen's Birthday Song by St John's College School Choir and the Band of Grenadier Guard. So that was a consideration, as was Just Say No at number 5 by the Grange Hillcast. Can't Wait Another Minute by Five Star, we're in there. A Kind of Magic by Queen, rock anthem there. But I really couldn't justify putting Her Majesty's Birthday Song in, or indeed Queen. The two things aren't related. It's not the same. Queen. That narrowed it down to a few. There was, at number 8, Big Country with Look Away. Great sounding band from up over the border, as we would say on Football Focus, I think, over the border. Train of Thought by Aha at 21, which I thought was a brilliant song by a band who are often remembered for Take On Me and The Sun Always Shines on TV. Train of Thought is better than both of those. It is a great song, 21. Marlena on the Wall by Suzanne Vega, which I remember one of my sisters fondly enjoying and listening to a lot, by Suzanne Vega. That was at 23. And just looking through these, there wasn't really anything else that took the eye. Level 42, Lessons in Love, a little bit yuppie-ish for my liking, although I did like Level 42, some of their stuff, not that particular one. So I'm going to settle for a song that got in at number 27. Somebody will tell me whether this was a one-hit wonder. I don't know. But it's a brilliant song with a brilliant tune, and it is Big Audio Dynamite with E = MC squared.
Chris, that is the correct answer. That was the one. Wow. Yeah, there were I would state here, 38 wrong answers that you could have gone for as far as this particular week's top 40 was concerned. Number 27, Big Audio Dynamite, E = MC squared. Definitely one of the two correct answers. The other one that I would have given you, It's Immaterial, Driving Away From Home, Jim's tune, an absolute banger.
I got this list at work and I couldn't quite listen to that. And that one was one I thought, I need to listen to that.
You'll know it. As soon as it's on, you'll be like, my God, yes.
Driving on the M56.
Yeah. It's all about, driving across the
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, not all that. An absolute classic.
That would be my third choice after Aha and Big Audio Dynamite.
Well, it's Immaterial was in at number 22 that week, that being the week that Kenny Dalglish dinked that ball past Tony Godden at Stamford Bridge to clinch Liverpool the first part of the 1985-86 double. Your next task. Okay, this line of commentary will come from an FA Cup final of the 1980s. It is a goal. It's the commentary of John Motson of that FA Cup final. You're looking for the missing name, basically, and this one, and this goal will give you. We'll cut it down a little bit. It comes from someone who ended up with a runners-up medal in their hand at that season's FA Cup final. Gatting plays it behind Tony Grealish. He still gets there, It's fast. It's fast and furious in this opening quarter of an hour. Grealish square to Smiley. Number 8, Howlett. Chipping one in for blank. It's there.
Oh, this is a Brighton and Hove Albion player. But is it Smith? Is it Smith or is it Gary Stevens? Or is it somebody completely different? I'm gonna say Smith. I know he missed one in that game, a famous one, but did he score one as well?
Yes, he did, Chris. You are absolutely perfect so far. That was Obviously, it's the final where the iconic radio commentary insists that Smith must score.
That's the one.
It tends to go forgotten, or underappreciated that he did actually score in that cup final. Just in the 15th minute of that game, missed the one late on in the 120th minute that would have made so much of a difference. But yeah, he was the man that opened the score in that day. Next up, name a non-footballing sporting event from the 1980s that made an impression on you.
Oh, there were going to be. I thought about this, and there were 3 that I narrowed it down to. One was Nigel Mansell's tyre exploding at the Adelaide Grand Prix in 1986. I mean, I really got into Formula One that year, and I just remember doing the old "whatever happened to the Lightly lads" because it was a race in Australia at 3 o'clock in the morning, and not going on to CFAX or listening to the news the next morning to watch a rerun. And Mansell just needed to get the car home, I think in 4th place, and he would have won the title. And his tyre blew up on the straight. And colossally, that's Mansell was the commentary by Murray Walker. And that was one. There was the famous black ball finish in the 1985 Snooker World Championship when Dennis Taylor won and started pointing at people in the crowd. And in fact, somebody I used to know who was a director at West Brom always claimed he was the person that Dennis Taylor was pointing at. I'm not so sure that's true, but that was his anecdote. And the final one was 1988. Now, in 1988, I'd just completed my first year at secondary school, high school, and I really got into hockey. Really got into it. I was a really good hockey player. I was quick, and I used to score a lot of goals. I was much better at hockey than I was at any other sport, as it happened. And that was the year of the Olympics in Seoul. And I remember getting up early on a Saturday to watch Great Britain beat West Germany 3-1 in the hockey final with Imran. I think it was Imran Shawani and Sean Curley, who was like the Gary Lineker of that team, scoring in a 3-1 win. And it was the game that gave the famous commentary from Barry Davis, "Where were the Germans? But frankly, who cares?" And that would probably be the top one because it was such a great moment and it did so much for hockey in my mind. I never pursued it as a sport beyond my second year, but for that one summer in 1988, I did really get into the sport and that particularly caught my eye, that game.
All excellent choices. Yeah, I did myself. Stayed up and watched the Nigel Mansell capitulation in Adelaide. Yeah, I remember the Sean Curley and Shawani. Yeah, hockey. Yeah, all of that. Yeah, absolutely. Properly remember all that. Talking commentators. Name me your favourite football commentator of the 1980s.
Oh, it's a tough one, this. Barry Davis would obviously be up there. But I don't think as a kid in the 80s, I really appreciated his craftsmanship of the English language. He was a real wordsmith, a brilliant orator. I think Brian Moore is the one I associate most with football from that era. John Motson as well, but Brian Moore particularly, he was the big match commentator. He was the guy every Sunday bringing football commentary into our living rooms at a time when I wasn't going to games because I was too young. So Brian Moore would be up there, but I do give a notable mention for Archie Macpherson, who became the soundtrack of Sports Night in the late 80s when English clubs were banned from Europe and you'd stop up on a Wednesday night to see Dundee United slogging it out somewhere in Sweden to a 2-2 draw in the UEFA Cup. And that was Archie Macpherson's platform to deliver his his commentary, and he was really good, and I really took to his accent and the way he delivered it. I thought he was brilliant.
Excellent choice, excellent choice. What was the peak of your own footballing career during the 1980s?
Well, there were two. I thought carefully about this, trying to revisit my footballing career as it was. When I was at primary school, so this would have been the mid-80s, 85, 86, there were two natural divisions in our class at school. And one faction became Manpool United, which was like an amalgamation of Man United and Liverpool, who were the two predominant teams. And the other team were called Hawks, and I played for Manpool United. And we basically played each other every day, all year. But of course, with football being what it was, we had to have a cup final. And so one of the lads in the school said, well, I'll design the shirts. And we thought, well, he's going to bring in some knockoff sports teamwear stuff from a sports shop. And he said, no. What I want you to do is to bring in some white T-shirts and I'll design the kits. And so we all took a white T-shirt and he got this permanent marker out and he drew numbers on all of our shirts and sponsors and logos. We looked absolutely dreadful. And we had this cup final and we marched out together. The two teams marched out together at playtime and we were waving to imaginary fans as we did so. And I do remember wearing the number 10 shirt and I scored. And I scored a goal by kicking it out the goalkeeper's hands. If you think to the 1984 Cup final when Andy Gray heads it out of Steve Sherwood's hands, I did similar, but I kicked it out the goalkeeper's hands. No referee was going to disallow that for me. So I whirled away celebrating. We drew 1-1 and I think we played a replay and then we won it on penalties. So that was one. Now, the other one, about a year later, we had a summer fete at the same school. And we decided, how can we raise money? And you've got all the normal, have a tombola, have somebody dressed up, put the head teacher in stocks and throw sponges at him. And somebody came up with the idea of beat the goalkeeper. Now, being one of the shortest lads in the class, of course, I naturally said, well, yeah, I'll do that. Why not? It'll be great. And so I volunteered to be one of the goalkeepers. And what they didn't say was that a guy called Steve Lynex, who is one of the most 1980s footballers in the Midlands of that time, played for Leicester, Birmingham, West Brom. He came along to open the fete. And of course, being a footballer, he was at West Brom at the time. He took a penalty. And yeah, I saved it. The fact that it was a very soft, side-footed stroke to design not to hurt me or harm me is irrelevant. I pulled off one of the saves of a lifetime to deny Steve Lynex a penalty in our school fete.
Very impressive.
He scored the next one, but I don't like to think about that one.
Very impressive, very impressive. Next one. Give me a 1980s cultural reference that will mean absolutely nothing outside your own region of the country. I'll give you a Granada land, example. For instance, we had TV, regular TV, and probably radio adverts where we were all being implored to relocate our businesses to Warrington Runcorn, and that we should be ringing Eileen Bilton for more information. Chris, give me your version of Eileen Bilton for the West Midlands.
There was one. There were two. There was one, and I forget, it was something like Don Everall Caravans, based in Derby. Now, bearing in mind, we lived in the Midlands, and the notion that you would go to Derby was exotic, let alone buy a caravan or take it to the coast. So that was one. It wasn't Everall, it was something like Don Amott. That was it, Don Amott Caravans, which was very Midland-centric, central-centric, as it was, our region. And the other one was an advert for a furniture store on Broad Street in Birmingham called Lee Longlands. And it's still there to this day, surrounded by bars, restaurants, nightclubs, casinos. Lee Longlands is still there. And during the 80s, they had a very catchy advert that would play at all sorts of times in the day. Primetime TV, leave it to Lee Longlands, implying that if you want furniture, go to Lee Longlands will sort you out with a 3-seater settee.
Fantastic. I'm impressed. Curveball. This one I didn't warn you about. It's all to do with a question of sponsorship. West Bromwich Albion relegated in 1985-86. What was emblazoned on the front of their shirts that season and during 1984-85?
A non-smoking sign.
Absolutely correct.
Of all the years to try and ask people to stop smoking, it was the year they decided to win only 4 games that season. But there you go.
Indeed, West Brom were simply not smoking all season long.
They weren't smoking. They were driving people to smoke and indeed drink, I suspect, that year.
Excellent. And one last question. If you were to ring the phone number 018118055, who would you be getting through to in the early 1980s?
That would be Saturday Superstore. BBC, Wood Lane, yeah? W something or other. I'd be getting on probably to launch a staunch defence of Matt Bianco after somebody had phoned up before me to call them a W word live on air. That would be, I suspect, the number that you're looking for. Am I correct?
You are. They did have that. They inherited the phone number as well from Swap Shop. Now, this was the bizarrity of it, is that we were all Tiswas watchers in our house. But for whatever reason, I always know the number of Swap Shop. 018118055. I can only surmise that there was a crossover where parts of the year where Swap Shop was on when Tiswas wasn't, and ITV's alternative Saturday morning when Tiswas wasn't on was that rubbish that we were forced to go and watch Noel Edmonds, Keith Chegwin and Maggie Philbin for a few weeks.
Well, Saturday Superstore replaced.
But yeah, Saturday Super, yeah, Mike Reed, yeah. But yes, they did. They inherited the very same number that Swap Shop had. Chris, I can confirm you've got the job. Contract will be in the post, and an email will come regarding start date.
I'm off to celebrate the can of Quattro.
This I approve of. Thank you very much, Chris. Looking forward to it. Candidate number 2, please give us your name. And what exactly are your 1980s credentials, footballing credentials? What do you think you can bring to this podcast?
So my name is Stu Horsfield. I think bring to this podcast, I think I can bring a passion and a love of 1980s football, and not just football. I think I can bring a passion and a love of the 1980s decade. I think I'll go into the reasons why. So first of all, the 1980s spans my ages of 8 to 18. So I went from a boy to a man in the 1980s, and going from primary school to being old enough to go out drinking. And the 1980s essentially formed who I am. Not only did it form who I am, although depending on who gets to listen to this and whether I'm successful or not, they might wish it hadn't, but it formed my relationship with football, formed my relationship with the beautiful game. My interest was there a little bit in the 70s, but it was the 1980s that cemented and shaped my opinions, my thoughts, my philosophies, my beliefs about football. And I think I can bring to bear the experiences of a child and an adult in a single decade.
Excellent answers. Excellent. That is definitely a foot in the door.
Thank you. Well, I was going to say something else. That was definitely a foot up.
It's a foot in the door. It's a foot, like the salesman at the door. Yeah, it's a foot in the door there.
I've piqued your interest.
You've piqued my interest. Yes, I am going to vote for the Horsfield Party at the tonight's general election. That's without a shadow of a doubt. This could be this is a potential deal breaker. This one, deal maker, deal breaker. Okay, no pressure. General thoughts about Blue Peter?
Overrated. Is my opinion. I never really got it. I liked it if they were doing a segment on sport or football or Star Wars. Not that I ever remember them doing a segment on Star Wars, but I'd like to think they jumped on that bandwagon. But yeah, I just found it overrated. I did love Sarah Green. I'm not going to lie. But other than that, I never made anything that they made. I never saw the point of the garden. Yeah, it's just overrated. I never wanted a Blue Peter badge. I never went to a bring and buy sale. It's just a very overrated program for me.
This is the correct answer. This is the correct answer.
Excellent. Thank you.
It has already been described in the interview with Chris as being something of, a program for the burgeoning middle classes, borderline propaganda for the Thatcher youth. And even I can remember it being an insult. If you'd done something good and you were proud of yourself and you mentioned it amongst your mates, the general comeback was, well, what do you want, a Blue Peter badge?
Yeah. Yeah, and they even had gold ones. I mean, I just never got it. I just never understood the value of the program.
Chris declared it to be an extra school lesson in the day, which I totally appreciate. Okay, 1980s synopsis for a TV quiz show. Okay, you're going to see if you can get this. Okay, the overall objective of the game was to survive elimination through to part 3 of the show, to unravel a series of ludicrously cryptic clues in order to win the star prize. However, one of the clues was a booby prize. A booby prize that wasn't a recycling booby prize, would wind up with simply just taking a rubbish receptacle home if they ended up picking this one.
I'm going to go with the very Ted Rogers orientated, and I can even remember the thing. Well, I'm signaling a bit. 3, 2, 1 is my answer, and it comes with a caveat to that. In that, I had a friend called Christopher Lloyd, whose mum and dad appeared on that show and won. This is so ages, it's not even true. They won a laser disc. Now, I want to say a laser disc machine because he won a DVD player because it was before the time of DVD players. But they won a laser disc player. I never knew what it did. I saw it in his house when I went round. But yeah, that's Christopher Lloyd's mum and dad won a laser disc player.
What a great name to have as a kid in the 80s as well. What a great name.
He had a brother called Justin.
Justin, not as interesting. Christopher Lloyd, though, that is a great name. Now, I worked with a lad. I didn't know him at the time when he did this, but he said he was on the Christmas 1983 episode of Crackerjack where he won a ZX Spectrum. But a lad in my street, he went with his school to be on Cheggers Plays Pop, where he had to dress up as a red snooker ball.
Yeah, there was some questionable stuff went on in the TV and popular entertainment industry at that time.
But it made him kind of like a personality around our street for a while. It was kind of like, it's Chris, he was on Cheggers Plays Pop.
A little bit of kudos, Cheggers Plays Pop.
Okay, earlier today, you were given a random 1980s top 40 to look through and to select the song that you would gladly illegally record from the radio. Now, I looked through this list, and your list for this was the top 40 at the time of the 1982 World Cup final. As far as I'm concerned, there's 39 wrong answers to this question. So there's no massive pressure, but again, all the pressure is there. Madrid, Santiago Bernabeu, Italy, West Germany. It's the 11th of July, 1982. What are you recording off the top 40?
Well, I looked through this, and now there's again two parts to this. It comes with a caveat. Now, I would imagine that the 10-year-old me was quite entranced by Duran Duran and Hungry Like the Wolf. However, my musical influence was massively influenced by my sister, who was a lot cooler than me and was 5 years older than me. And so all her friends, and certainly male friends, were way cooler than I was. And it would have been The Clash and Rock the Casbah, because I would have wanted to have appeared cool to my sister and her friends. Having not really appreciated The Clash until later in life, but I know that that's what she would have been playing. And so that's where I would have been drawn to in order to record. So I would have, as with, and again, I probably should have mentioned this in my in the opening question in how easily influenced I am by everything that is either pretty and shallow but is easy on the eye, I feel like the Clash was the cool populist choice, and that is definitely what I would have gone with and followed, even though probably secretly at the youth club I would have probably selected Hungry Like the Wolf by Duran Duran.
Well, neither of those answers were correct. The correct answer, the only correct answer, was number 24, Yazoo, Don't Go.
Yeah, you see, I liked Yazoo and I liked Only You, but yeah, I unfortunately it was whatever my sister was listening to, and all my sister's friends were listening to.
This is our. We can blame your sister for this.
Yeah, we can. I blame for quite a lot of my growing up.
You've got a lot of credit in the bank for your thoughts on Blue Peter, so that's all right. That's okay.
Excellent, thank you.
That put you plenty in credit. I'm going to give you a line from an FA Cup final. Identify the missing goal scorer.
Okay.
As with Chris, this goal scorer ended up with a runners-up medal. So we'll narrow the angle a little bit. Okay, the commentator in question was John Motton. Ransom with the kick, Miller, Reeves underneath her, and now Hutchinson. 2, blank. Oh, tremendous goal.
So it's with those players, it's got to be the 81 FA Cup final. And Tommy Hutchinson, arguably the most celebrated and tragic figure in a single FA Cup final that there's probably ever been. I think, again, we were blessed to have 2 games as it went to a replay. I think the replay of that game is probably, in my opinion, again, probably part of the interview, because I'm shallow, is probably the greatest FA Cup final I've watched. That is pushed marginally close by Tottenham Coventry in '87, and then maybe pushed not quite as close by Liverpool West Ham in the new millennium. But the 81 FA Cup final replay is the greatest FA Cup final, and both games were outstanding in completely different ways.
That's good waffle, but who was the goal scorer?
Oh yeah, that was the question. Give me it again.
The line again is Ransom with the kick, Miller, Reeves underneath her, and now Hutchison. 2, blank. Oh, tremendous goal.
It won't be it's not the first goal. In the replay, it was Dave Bennett and Steve McKenzie with arguably better than Ricky Villa's goal. So I'm gonna go with Steve McKenzie.
Correct.
Yes!
Correct answer.
Thank you. I was trying to work because I thought Dave Bennett was involved in that goal at some point, which is why I was hesitant on that. But Steve McKenzie, great goal.
I could sense your anxiety with that, Stu.
There was a lot of anxiety there.
I could sense the pressure building there. Okay, next question. Name a non-footballing sporting event from the 1980s that made an impression on you.
Okay, this is definitely going to come with honourable mentions because, again, the 80s for me was probably...
I'll let you know that Chris chose 3 at this point.
Well, I've got 3 within the space of 3 months in 1 year.
Well,
and it's not even my first choice. So I've gone, so to sum up, like you said, in the opening question, you asked me what I brought, and it was like I said, my main thing is my age, 8 to 18. And I've been on a podcast before for these football times. I don't want to name drop anything, but where we've talked about in the decades and how decades tend to peak sort of in the 4, 5, and 6 years, where the decade reaches a crescendo and then starts to fall away again. And that seems to happen in most decades. So at the age of, I would have been, let me think, we get my maths right. I would have been 12, nearly 13. So 1985, April, Hagler Hearns, 3 rounds of unbelievable boxing. The following month, May, Steve Davis, Dennis Taylor play arguably the greatest World Championship final that my mum fell asleep and I managed to get to stay up, being dead quiet to see it right to the end. July, was Boris Becker winning Wimbledon as a 17-year-old, which made me question what I was going to do with the next 4 years of my life to get to that standard. And also in that month was Live Aid. So that's the sort of the standards that we're setting. However, my answer is from the year before, and it's the 1984 West Indies Cricket Tour of England, which I remember watching every game in the summer holidays, or it felt like I watched every game in the summer holidays. Felt like I watched every game. And cricket certainly more than boxing and tennis and snooker was a sport that was still accessible and I still played. So you could still be, like in football, who were you going to be? So it was always going to be, when you were batting, you were either Viv Richards or Clive Lloyd or Gordon Greenwich. And when you were bowling, you liked to think you were Joel Garner or Michael Holding or Patrick Patson. But the names, I could name all 11 from that West Indian cricket side. They were just incredible cricketers, all of them, 1 to 11, in every job they did, whether they were opening batsman, opening bowler, Geoffrey Dujon, the wicketkeeper. They were all, from what I remember, the best in the world at their role. And Clive Lloyd as captain. They were just incredible.
Excellent answer. Yeah, I love that team as well. They were the joy of kind of like a rainy day in the summer during the school holidays and being a captive audience of 3 or 4 channels. So yeah, we didn't want to watch the Open University and Play School. We didn't want to be watching the way we used to live on ITV. It's got to be Channel 4 didn't even come on air until 4 o'clock. It's we were very much snookered by the cricket as such. But I'd say I could rattle off the vast majority of that West Indian side.
They were,
Chris did cite the snooker as well. So yeah, it's a common theme. But yeah, excellent choice.
And I didn't even get into Daley Thompson. And his perpetual beating of Jürgen Hinkson, the German, into second place in the decathlon at what seems like every major athletics event.
Absolutely. You always remember the kind of like the villain of the piece of those rivalries. Like Petra Felker with the javelin with Fatima Whitbread and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely excellent. Your favourite football commentator of the 1980s?
I nearly went straight to my answer because I was like, I know this. And then I've had a slight hesitation while I just double check and make sure. But my favourite football commentator of all time is Barry Davis. And I just thought he was incredible. And I do wonder whether part of that is swayed by the fact that he commentated on other sports. So therefore was probably even more, was in my conscience sort of 12 months of the year. Whereas maybe John Motts and Brian Moore, maybe not quite so much. But yeah, Barry Davis just always just got it right. And he always got the pitch and the tone of his voice was always dead on as well. He was excited when he needed to be, calm when he needed to be, but never too calm or too excited. I thought he was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
The right answer.
And where were the Germans? And that's hockey. That's not even football.
Well, exactly. And Chris stated that very, very line, and the hockey in '88 as being part of his kind of like impressionable ones. Chris nearly did blot his copybook by going for Brian Moore, but he pulled it back by going for Archie Macpherson as an esoteric option.
Oh, okay.
Which I was fine to run with that. Had he gone with Brian Moore, he wasn't getting the job. There's no doubt about it. He was that close to throwing it all away.
Wow. High pressure questions.
High pressure questions. Next question. What was the peak of your own 1980s footballing career?
I played at Scarborough's Stadium in the East Right. What was it? Scarborough District Under 14s Summer League, and the final was played at. It would have been called. It was Seamer Road. It wasn't called the McCain Stadium at that point because they weren't a league side. They were still a non-league side at that point. But I remember we got changed in the changing rooms and we lost the final 2-1. But yeah, that was probably the peak in terms of playing on a decent playing surface. Yeah, I just played all the time. There's nothing. I would like to say I had trials here and trials there, and I played schoolboy rep stuff, but that was about it. It was just your regular. I didn't play with nets till I was about 13. Nets were an absolute revelation to me. When I started playing games with nets in, that was brilliant. But yeah, it was playing at Scarborough's at Seymour Road, Scarborough's old stadium in the Scarborough District Under-14s final, which we lost 2-1, but played at Scarborough's ground.
A bittersweet success there. A bittersweet success.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, excellent. For me, I had trials with Wigan under-12s, but I twisted my knee, and it was the chance was gone.
What could have been?
What could have been? I also was brought in as a ringer for a six-a-side tournament for a Sunday school. Because it was basically the team were full of Blue Peter viewers, basically.
Oh, that explains that.
Yeah, and my mate Sean Clark, definitely a Blue Peter viewer, someone who had a Millennium Falcon, for God's sake.
Whoa!
Oh, one of those, Stu, one of those.
Yeah.
And it was his, I think it was whoever his Sunday school teacher was had asked, do you know anyone can actually kick a football in a straight, in the right direction? And he asked me to go and play, and I dragged us to the semi-finals. We were beaten by bigger boys. Stu. We were beaten by bigger boys,
and there was no checking of birth certificates and stuff like that. Then you lined up against anyone. There was all sorts of. It was open to skullduggery, depending on how badly other teams wanted to win a competition. I think is probably what I'd say there. I remember it was a lad called Toby Mustoe who was the captain of the other side when we lost in the final. And to me, he looked about 6'4". I mean, he clearly wasn't, but it felt like he was about 6'4", and just dominated everything. And even to this day, I'm convinced Toby Mustoe was not under 14.
Kind of like the stereotypical African player that's stated to be 18 years old, but is clearly about 48. Yeah,
that's exactly it, yeah.
Excellent stuff. Give me a 1980s cultural reference that will mean absolutely nothing outside your own part of the country. I would also throw into the mix the fabled radio advert on Radio City for Davy Livy Cabs, 708 7080. When you need a cab, just let us know. Phone Davy Livy Cabs. Stu, give us an East Riding / Scarborough version of this.
Well, I was going to say, so there's two. One of them is the complete and total disappearance of a geographical region right in the middle of the 1980s, where all of a sudden East Yorkshire just disappeared. It just didn't exist anymore. It was not a thing nor a place, and you couldn't use it to put it on letters and postcards to your gran and my Auntie Mary, who happened to live in East Yorkshire at that time. I was classed as North Yorkshire in Scarborough. And it was obviously changed to Humberside. So it was the complete disappearance of 1/4 of the county of Yorkshire that just disappeared and just changed its name.
Sounds like an episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah, it genuinely, honestly, it just changed. And my gran and my auntie, I remember they were raging. They were absolutely raging about it. They were fuming. Didn't even like the word Humberside. And the second one is ordering, and I never realised quite how rare this was, is ordering a patty butty. So if you went to the fish and chip shop or to the chippy, a patty is like a herb and potato cake that's just covered in batter and deep fried and stuck in a bread cake. And pretty much as soon as I step out of this area and ask for a patty butty, people have no clue what a patty butty is, nor do they understand the reference of it's a patty and it's a bread cake. And a lot of people don't know what a bread cake is either. I mean, do you mean like a bread bun or do you mean yeah. So yeah, patty butties you only seem to be able to buy them in an incredibly small geographical area. And the disappearance for a short time of 1/4 or 25% of the county of Yorkshire.
Excellent, mysterious and excellent. I approve of all this. The curveball question, which you weren't warned about. I've declared this to be a question of shirt sponsorship. FA Cup 1988-89.
Yeah.
Liverpool take a trip to Boothby Park. We are actually unwittingly in close proximity at this point.
We are. We're only separated by the length of a pitch.
By the length of a pitch. Hull City's shirt sponsor that day.
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that.
But when I come to look at this, it was epically difficult, far more difficult than what Chris was handed, and far more difficult than what our next candidate will be given as well. So I will say that if you can't get this, then give me the Liverpool one anyway, and we'll call it quits on that one. If you can get the Hull City one,
I'm not. I can describe the shirt.
I will class you as senior contributor to the podcast.
Oh no! I remember the shirt. I can remember the colours, the little red and shoulder, almost like shoulder patches up here. While I'm playing for time, I will also inform you that at one point, Hull City was so poor they didn't have a sponsor, and they had Humberside written across the front of their shirt for a season.
Oh, I bet your grandma wasn't.
Oh, grandma's raging at that as well. You see, I know they were sponsored by Pepe's, but I think that's later on, which is an Italian restaurant on the marina. I'm going to go with Mansfield Brewery.
Close. Yeah. I think that was the season before or after. But I'd imagine that the one it is was possibly a product of Mansfield Brewery. Riding Bitter.
Oh, okay.
Riding Bitter. Very difficult.
Yeah, I wouldn't have got that.
The Liverpool shirt sponsor that day, just to give you a little bit of recourse.
I would have gone with. Were they still Crown Paints?
No, they weren't.
Candy.
Yeah. It was the first season of Candy.
Yeah.
Never liked that as a sponsor.
No.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
I associate it slightly
into
the early 90s, Candy, but yeah, I'll go. Yeah, Candy.
It was Candy. And
that's a great question, by the way.
Yeah, so I was impressed with that one. I was quite proud of myself.
Yeah, right.
And to which obviously you need to say, what do you want a Blue Peter back?
Yeah. Yeah. I would have wanted a gold one if I'd got that right.
And finally, if you were to ring the number in the early 1980s, 01811 8055, who would you be getting through to?
Now, I think, and I hope I'm right here, because it's one of them. It's a bizarre number, and it's one of them that has instant. I think it's Swap Shop.
It is indeed Swap Shop. It's
Noel Edmonds. It's multicolored Swap Shop, isn't it? With Noel Edmonds.
Yep, it is. But this is it. I've discussed it with Chris. It was a bizarrity because we were Tiswas watchers at our house. And yet I still know the number to Swap Shop. And the only theory I could come up with was that there must have been a time of the year where Tiswas wasn't on and Swap Shop was. Thus, whatever they replaced Tiswas with during those summer months, it actually drove you over to Swap Shop for a few weeks until Tiswas came back on. But yeah, Chris also cited that it was Saturday Superstore's phone number as well. So they actually inherited the same number.
The phone line. Obviously, they didn't rip the phone lines out, did they?
They just handed the phone over and didn't disconnect it.
Yeah, changed the set and kept the phone connected.
Absolutely,
they would have played disconnection charges. Yeah. Saturdays, multicolored Swap Shop, Maggie Philbin, Keith Chegwin, Noel Edmonds. My sister loved it. She absolutely loved it.
Mine did as well.
Shop. Once she got older and cooler, she claimed that she didn't. But
mine was the same. It was always kind of like, I think maybe we even have to, a bit like you were with the top 40 and Sunday afternoon football, we might have had to alternate
swap it around. Bit of alternation.
Maybe this is why that's the one thing Swap Shop had going for it was a far catchier phone number than whatever Tiswas was by the look of it. And that's all we can say. Yeah, and that's the only redeeming feature that Swap Shop had going when we're going toe to toe with Tiswas. Stu, I can confirm that you've got the job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The contract will be in the post.
Excellent.
And details about a start date will come very soon.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for asking me to interview. I am really grateful. I look forward to time with you.
It's going to be a little bit. It's going to be a little bit epic, Stu.
I know. I can't wait. I'm so excited to bring in all the cultural references we couldn't manage to fit into 2.5 hours of the 80s series.
Completely. Absolutely. Everything that remained unfulfilled shall be fulfilled. Stu, thank you very much. I will move on to the next candidate.
Thank you for your time. Thank you. I look forward to working with you soon.
Candidate number 3. Please give us your name and what exactly are your 1980s footballing credentials? What do you think you can bring to this podcast?
I'm Aidan Williams, and my credentials are the decade, 1980s. I went from the age of 5 to 15 through this decade, and I think that pretty much covers the perfect sweet spot for absorbing everything about football, whether that be through television, through playing, through going. It was all new, it was all exciting, and it was all there to be absorbed. And I think you can only do that through those ages. I think, very much like yourself, Stephen, I imagine pretty much the same age range we're talking here. It's pretty much spot on if we're going to talk an actual decade. The decade after, I probably had far more awareness between the ages of 15 and 25, but you're not absorbing it in quite the same way. And therefore, that's what I can bring to it as well, is the wide-eyed innocence of youth that I had back then. The way all the kits were short and shiny, the way the sticker books were perfect and more complete than you could ever hope to now because they had so many ridiculous extra ones. The way the tournaments of those summers were the most enchanting you could possibly be. The way that we had some very exciting first division football, although not from my club, save for a certain Brazilian later in the decade. But that's what I can bring. I think is the wide-eyed innocence of youth that this decade was to me.
Absolutely, we were information sponges at that point in time.
Exactly.
No, very, very.
Before it became the jaded teenager by the end of it. So going into 1990, it was all a bit more grumpy.
The cynic by 1990.
Yes.
But yeah.
Just as pragmatic football came along. So I got more jaded.
Absolutely. The 1980s were as impressionable as you could possibly be.
Exactly.
Our first question proper. You'd give me your general thoughts on Blue Peter.
It's in part trying to gauge what your general thoughts might be so I can give the correct answer to this.
I'm trying to play poker face here, but yes, I'm not saying that this will make or break the deal, but no, there's a certain amount of pressure on this question.
I can tell. Now, I don't remember lots about it, to be honest. I do know it was on in the house, and I will have watched it. I did watch it. I probably also tried to get a Blue Peter badge at some point, but clearly I was not made of the right stuff for that. I think this is probably only from my much younger time in this decade. As I got a bit older, it held little interest for me beyond that point. So the likes of people I remember are Janet Ellis, Peter Duncan, Sarah Green, although I remember her from other programs as well, I think. But I also do remember Pele being on it one time, flicking the ball up over his shoulder and volleying it into a makeshift goal. And this was my proper introduction to him, probably, but his name already had this kind of mythical quality to it in my mind by there, probably sealed by this appearance. So I think it's something that my youthful naivety took me into. I probably led astray by my older sister, so I can blame her.
I like that. A kind of sitting on the fence kind of response to that question.
I can't deny watching it because, of course, I think every child at that time will have watched it. There wasn't much television on.
Exactly.
You watched the children's programs that were on.
It all depended what was on the other channels at that point in time, whether it was raining or not. But yes, for me, very much fodder of the burgeoning middle classes, and at worst, just sheer propaganda for the Thatcher youth. Blue Peter, not on my TV, given half the chance. Moving on from the vindictiveness of Blue Peter, onto our next question. This one is to see if you can recognise the 1980s quiz show from the synopsis that is to be recited. Okay, so this programme originally ran for a massive amount of time, really. September 1977 to November 1995, so it encompassed the entirety of the 1980s. Contestants from across the United Kingdom and Ireland competed in rounds that tested their physical stamina and their mental attributes. The show's title refers to a superhero's home planet. The title perceived that the contestants had superhuman powers of some description, participated in challenges that were set. So, Aidan, I remember this being on a Monday night. It had a very kind of futuristic kind of theme tune. And do you recognise the TV quiz show?
I think, gauging from the superhero planet, that we're talking about the Krypton factor here.
Absolutely, the Krypton factor.
Excellent. It's a relief. It's a relief to get this. I have to say, I've been nervous about this question. I was thinking of Dusty Bin and 3-2-1 earlier in the day.
Stu was thrown Dusty Bin and 3-2-1, most definitely. Chris was thrown Going for Gold. And,
yes.
So, yeah.
I only ever saw that one when I was off school sick. Mid-afternoon TV. The Krypton factor was a good one. I liked it.
It was great. The excellent Gordon Burns at the helm of that one. Next question. Earlier today, you were forwarded a top 40 to peruse, and your particular top 40 was the final week of June 1984. It encompassed the 23rd of June. The day of the 1984 European Championship semi-final between France and Portugal, that iconic game at the Stade Velodrome in Marseille.
Someone should write a book on that one, I think.
Someone should write a book on that one, which would enhance the 1980s footballing pedigree for getting a job on this podcast. Aidan, having perused that top 40, which song would you be illegally recording from the top 40 that particular week?
Now, see, I can answer this in two ways of like me now as a 49-year-old looking at this list and trying to pick out the things I think are slightly cooler, or thinking what 9-year-old me would have done back in 1984. So I might, in true TFT tradition, I might give you more than one answer. Looking through the list, as I got further down to the lower reaches of the top 40, the relegation zone, if you like, way down at number 38, we had Dancing in the Dark, Bruce Springsteen. I quite like that one. And Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time was just a little bit above that. I think they're both decent enough. Both good ones for the current me probably to be drawn to. I think probably coolest of all, though, a bit further up, number 21, White Lines, Don't Do It, Grandmaster Flash. I think the modern me would probably pick that to illegally record. But the 9-year-old me would not have picked that. I'd have been far more swayed, much more easily influenced, I guess, and just taken along with the popularity. And I do actually remember this song really, really well from the time. It was the number one of this point. It was Two Tribes by Frankie Goes to Hollywood, who were also at number 4 or 5 as well with Relax, I think. But Two Tribes, I do remember it. Even then, I loved the sort of deep bass, repetitive intro to it. I think that was quite nice and iconic. I had absolutely no idea what it was about, of course, which is probably just as well. But never mind all that. I think I even from the time, I remember that song as a 9-year-old, and I remember quite enjoying it. So there you go. I think I would have just followed the crowd and being the sheep that I must have been at the time, and I would have illegally recorded Two Tribes as the number one, but the modern me might pick a few different things.
A good choice, though. I mean, out of the 3 top 40s sent out today, this was the most impressive, I think. This was there was a lot of choice on this one.
Exactly. There's some good songs in there.
Yeah, I can't knock any of the ones that you've selected there. White Line's brilliant. Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Fantastic tunes. Yeah, I had a beeline for number 22. Scritti Politti, Absolute, which is one of those that people might think, what did that go like? As soon as you hear it, you'll be kind of, God, yeah. And at number 40, only just scraping in, Lloyd Cole and the Commotions, perfect skin.
But yeah, you're right. It's unusual to have a top 40 that has quite a lot going for it. I think, if you ever listen to the Brazilian Shirt Name podcast with Dotton and Tim Vickery, when they obviously base a lot of it on their past games and the charts of the time and so on. And sometimes it's utterly, utterly naff because there's literally nothing you can say about the music other than how awful it is and how it was a bad spot between 2 more impressive eras or something. But as much as 1984 might not be what you think of as I iconic era or anything like that. I think the emergence of people like Frankie Goes to Hollywood was kind of altering things a little bit, and then having them up at the top twice in this case. But, there's depth to this chart, isn't there? Definite depth.
Absolutely impressive.
Like a good Liverpool squad of the day, Stephen.
It is. It's very much the kind of like the Liverpool 83-84. It's without a shadow of a doubt. There's Souness in there. There's Dalglish still doing it. Rush. Yeah,
there's something for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Next, you're going to be given a line from an FA Cup final, a piece of John Motson commentary. The goal scorer blanked out. Your task is to decipher the goal scorer. It's Spurs who have the initiative with this free kick. It'll be Hoddle to take it, and Goth's there, and Blank's there, and it's gone in. Now, I will give you the caveat as this as well, which I gave to Chris and Stu. This is a goal scored by a player who will end up with a runners-up medal in their hand rather than a winner's medal.
Yes. Well, when you said Hoddle, now obviously Spurs had quite a lot of cup finals in the 80s, and I'm sure Hoddle was in some of their earlier ones as well. But Richard Gough, I think, means we're talking 1987. And obviously they lost to Coventry, and whereas they won the other one. So yes, 1987. Goal scorers, crikey. I think, did he score for both teams this day? Is it Gary Mabbott?
It is indeed.
This will be the one he got at the right end.
It was indeed. It was indeed well deciphered. Well deciphered. Felt the pressure rising.
I know. I was anxious about this question. I've been watching FA Cup final goals and trying to think. Well, I know this one well. Ooh, these ones. I was hoping you didn't get me something from 1980 or 81. I wouldn't have had any memory.
No. Went with 87. The difficulty for this was that all of the first few videos online, when I'm looking for the commentary and the line of commentary for the goal, it was all ITV's coverage and Ryan Moore. It's like, no, it's got to be John Motson's version of this. So yeah, that took a bit of finding, but yeah, when I come to find it, it wasn't his most classic line ever, but it did the job though. It did the job.
It did the job, and we got there.
Absolutely.
Unlike Spurs.
Okay. Unlike Spurs did. Indeed. No own goals ties in this interview though, Aidan. No own goals. Okay, name a non-footballing sporting event from the 1980s that made an impression on you.
I think I will have to stick to 1984 and the Los Angeles Olympics. I think this was a huge one for me. It all looked so bright and shiny and sunny. The TV graphics were all large and in your face and big, bold font, and it was very different to the kind of things we got at home. The stadiums were incredible. Outdoor swimming pools, a huge stadium for the actual athletics with no roofing of any kind, because why would they need it? It was glorious and sunny. It was perfect. So yeah, that made a massive impression on me. I think I was young enough for it to not seem odd that there were hardly any Eastern European countries taking part, or understand why. But I just remember thinking the whole thing was great. This will have been my first Olympic Games that I was aware of. I probably sat through bits of the Moscow 80 Games, but I don't really recall, and it didn't make any lasting impression on me whatsoever. But this one very much did. It was all the razzmatazz of it all. It was just done better than anything I'd seen before in terms of a sporting event. It had the whole glitz and glamour about it that I'd never seen anything else have. Obviously, I'd seen the 82 World Cup, but there you're dotted in or out of isolated areas and locations and events, whereas this seemed to just have everything all about it in the one place. And it was just 2 weeks, and I probably didn't get to watch it all because I'm sure a lot of it was late at night, but it was 2 weeks of just all sorts of different sports that I'd probably never seen many of them before. And it was absolutely brilliant. Whereas also on the athletics side of things, I also remember just before it, because obviously up here we got the Gateshead Stadium, and there was quite a lot of athletics events in this era, especially since we had big local heroes of Steve Cram and so on at the time. And I do remember going to an Olympic trials event for the 84 Olympics just before it at Gateshead and seeing various people. But we frequently had quite high-level athletics events on my doorstep. And I think that was a little window into the Olympics, and then that just took it up so many extra levels. I absolutely loved it.
Excellent choice. Stu and Chris both went for the 1985 World Snooker final against Taylor Steve Davis. There were mentions in true Gary Thacker style. They went for more than one. 1988 Olympic hockey was mentioned. And, Nigel Mansell's tyre blowing out in Adelaide and the F1, and
Oh, well, if you want me to get more specific on the 84 Olympics, it would be Carl Lewis.
Carl Lewis.
And his 4 gold medals in his all-red outfit.
Absolutely
and
great.
Daley Thompson whistling along to the national anthem, having won his gold medal.
And causing the Daily Mail and the Daily Express to seriously kick off. So all a bonus, shall we say.
And that got to be followed up by playing Daley Thompson's decathlon on various computers. So.
Fantastic. Okay, next question. Favourite football commentator of the 1980s?
We've done a fair bit of Motson things, but I actually like Barry Davies better. And I think this is probably just from isolated incidents, because John Motson had far more of the big stuff. I think he did all the FA Cup finals at this time. Davies didn't get one until the 90s. Equally, the World Cup finals were all Motson as well when it came to the BBC. But I think it's probably from having witnessed things like the England-Argentina game in 86 repeatedly on various things, and Barry Davies commentated on that. And, his whole, you have to say that is magnificent. I think the sort of understated, but a nice way, despite what had happened just before and the sort of hard feelings that I guess anyone who had a vested interest in England would have felt at that point, to then see such magnificence come and to sort of give it its due grace and due merit was good and impressive. I always found Motson a little bit too excitable for my tastes in some ways, with the notable exception of his 84 Platini commentary, which he's perfectly entitled to get ridiculously excited about. Oddly, I was never a big fan of Brian Moore. I don't know why. It never quite sat right to me. He just feels, to me anyway, I know lots of people absolutely love him, but he always sounded a little bit dull and forced in my mind. I don't know why. Maybe his voice just grated on me in a way that Barry Davies didn't. But yeah, Barry Davies was mine.
The absolute correct answer, and bonus points for kind of like for the Brian Moore comments there as well. I couldn't stand, and it's too strong of a word, but yeah, he was the commentator that rubbed me up the wrong way in the 1980s.
Oh right, well I'm glad I'm not alone.
No, you're not alone on that. You're not alone on that. What I would say as part of that though is as I can sit and watch the big match revisited now and actually appreciate him as a commentator now. So it's like that band you didn't like years ago, but actually kind of like years on, you kind of like, actually that's a decent tune and that's a decent tune. Yeah. After the event, Brian Moore has gone off in my estimations, but he's never going to touch the levels of a Barry Davies, though.
No, you see, Barry Davies would say, "Oh, it's a magnificent goal!" Like when Lineker went through and scored against Poland in the World Cup. You hear Davies there, "Oh, magnificent goal!" Whereas Brian Moore, I feel like he'd have just been going, "Oh, and it's a wonderful goal."
Yeah, and it's in there. It was that catchphrase. If a commentator needs a catchphrase, then they're not doing what they should be doing. Absolutely.
Let the goal speak for itself, as Davies say.
Absolutely. Bonus points for that one there, Aidan. Bonus points. Okay, so next, what was the peak of your own 1980s footballing career?
Well, okay then. In the 1980s, I guess the most significant peak was playing for Ponteland County Middle School in southern Northumberland and winning the schools league in the area against the giants of Holt Whistle and Hayden Bridge and Gosforth East and Gosforth Central and people like that. So I do remember we had to wear a Man City styled kit. Bizarrely, it was one of those Umbro ones with the sort of the white and pale blue collar, V collar, and the wrist bits and pale blue. And at the time, we all thought it looked quite cool. But looking back, it really didn't. But anyway, we won. And our change kit was a bit more Oxford United, yellow and dark navy. I don't know where it came from because the school colours were none of those things. But never mind. That's what we had. We must have got them as a job lot from somewhere. But we won our league. and we got this big shield as a trophy that we all got to take home for a few days. And I got pictures of that somewhere stashed away. So that was probably the peak of my achievements. It's certainly the only thing I ever properly won. The other notable, I guess, footballing thing from the 80s for me was when I was a bit earlier, a bit younger, when I was in first school. This is showing where I'm from, of course, a 3-tier system. I've talked about middle school and a first school. But anyway, that's probably confused half our listeners. But at playtimes, we played football on the yard with a tennis ball, and the teams were often decided as 4 best v the rest, which seemed perfectly reasonable at the time to me because I was one of the 4 best. And we like to dominate proceedings against our lesser talented classmates, shall we say. It all just seemed absolutely normal at the time, but I do occasionally now wonder what the rest felt about it all. But frankly, they should have just been a bit better at football.
Absolutely. Never sugarcoat it in these circumstances. Never.
It was 4 of us against about 15, but it seemed perfectly fair to me because we seemed to beat them.
when my kids lament the lack of footballs at school, that they're all on the roof or over the fence and all that type of stuff. No, my stock answer to that is that this should be better at football. Come on. You can't sugarcoat these things. Moving on to our next theme. Give me a 1980s cultural reference that will mean absolutely nothing outside your own region of the country. With Chris and Stu, I've cited the legend, the Northwest legend that is Eileen Bilton, who used to implore us all to relocate our businesses to Warrington Runcorn. I was 7. I wasn't running a business. I had no business suit. I'd be more likely to be seen in a Liverpool 1977 to 82 V-neck shirt handed down from at least 2 different people. I also cited the iconic radio advert for Davy Liver cabs, 708 7080. When you need a cab, just let us know. Phone Davy Liver cabs. These things will never leave me. Eileen Bilton has never left me, and nor has the phone number for Davy Liver cabs. Adrian, anything from the Northeast that you can throw into the mix?
Yeah, I've got a couple, I think, and I have absolutely no idea whether people know them from outside the region, so I may fail on that score. But one, when you're talking there of adverts, there was one, we had a Tudor crisps, was I think it got taken up by Walkers eventually. It was that kind of style of crisps. But there was an advert of a kid on a bike, and he was doing a paper round outside a high-rise block and didn't want to do it, and he gets someone else to do it by bribing him with a bag of Tudor crisps. And the tagline is, "Oh, great flavors, Tudor. I'll do anything for Tudor." So there's that one. And I'll skip past Jossie's Giants because everybody, I think, knows that. But that's another Northeastern one. But more culturally, and I think this is probably about 1988 or so, maybe 89, is a protest campaign with the catchphrase, "Don't give the dog to the dingo." Now, I remember this really, really well. Now, the dog in reference is... Well, this is to do with Scottish and Newcastle breweries. The dog is brown ale. Now, where that comes from is going way back. People would allegedly, who knows if this is true, probably apocryphal, but the legend goes that people would say they're off to take the dog for a walk, but what it meant was they're off to the pub. So a bottle of brown ale is known locally as a bottle of dog. And Scottish and Newcastle were potentially being bought out by an Australian brewery, probably something to do with Foster's or Castlemaine, I don't know. So yes, "Don't give the dog to the dingo" was the protest expression of choice.
Excellent. I like that one. Curveball time. A question you were not warned about. That I have now christened a question of shirt sponsorship. Liverpool took a tip to St James Park in September 1987. Peter Beardsley in a Liverpool shirt. A certain Mirandini you might know a song about in a Newcastle United shirt. Liverpool with crown paints emblazoned across their shirts for one last season.
Well, I was going to answer crown paints. I was thinking that.
No. What was emblazoned across the Newcastle United shirts for 1987-88?
By this point, because obviously it had been a blue star for the aforementioned Scottish and Newcastle breweries for a lot of the time. There was a period in the late 80s when they were sponsored by Greenall's, and I think I will go with them. I think that's about this time.
Absolutely, you've nailed it.
Oh.
Oh, that was a pressurised, highly pressurised curveball question there. And the final question, if you were to pick up a phone and dial 018118055, who would you get through to?
Well, I think this has got multiple answers, depending on how old you were, because I think this came from Swap Shop and moved on to Saturday Superstore. And I knew Saturday Superstore better. That's probably just because of the age I was. I think Swap Shop ended when I was quite young. I remember Saturday Superstore, Keith Chegwin, Mike Reed, Sarah Green again, John Craven and so on. And I think it was the same number for that. So depends on which age you're looking at. But I think both of those answers covers me.
Indeed it does. Yeah, it does split that 1980s demographic. And I was saying to both Chris and Stu was that the bizarre thing is, to know that phone number from a Swap Shop point of view, from my point of view, we were at Tiswell's house. We were defiantly at Tiswell's house. So just why the hell would I know a Swap Shop number? It's clear that the phone number to get through to Tiswell's just wasn't as catchy and easy to remember as the Swap Shop one. And there had to have been points of the year where the two weren't overlapping, and we were clearly chased off to BBC for Swap Shop when Tiswell's was out of commission. But yes, Aidan, well done. Pretty much faultless in that interview, I'd say there. I'm pleased to say you've got the job. Contract will be in the post, and start dates will be confirmed.
Oh, what a relief. It's been a stress.
Excellent, Aidan. Excellent. We are so much looking forward to this. Anything in particular that you would like us to cover in this 1980s podcast that will rumble on forever, to be quite honest with you?
It will, exactly. There's so many things, and that's why there's a lot of domestic focus and a lot of international ones. I think we need to go for some of the obscure at times. You mentioned in a chat earlier about focusing on Steaua Bucharest's European Cup. That's definitely one for the purists when it comes to that particular final. I think we could do a whole series on different sponsors and designs for the League Cup and quite where that three-handled trophy came from. That'd be a great one to get into.
Excellent. All being written and put down on that that to-do list. This is going to be pretty epic, Aidan. Most looking forward to it.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with you, Aidan.